On today's episode, we'll be talking about being inspired by Slim Pickens, operating on an OKGO video, the good fight, Coda, and of course, working the assembly line in a kaleidoscope factory. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and gooey operator goodness. Make sure to check out the breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, the musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the blocking, the answers, the images, and so much more. If you're enjoying this podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Camera, you mark.
And camera set. And action.
Hello and welcome back to the Op Podcast, the podcast where we talk about operating and the art of visual storytelling. I'm Dave Comides, your host, coming to you over the internet today with a friend who we go way back. He's a former camera operator, Steadicam operator, now a really phenomenal DP, Mr. Alec Jarnagin. Alec, like myself, has been operating or in the business, I should say, because he's now a DP, since the late 1900s. A couple of his credits, but not all by any means, because I think there are like 140 or something like that on his IMDb. As an operator, The Good Fight, Coda, Mozart in the Jungle, Run All Night, The Americans. As a DP, Elsbeth and The Good Fight, along with some other episodes of other shows. And I've been wanting to get him on the podcast for a while, and finally he had some time and I had some time. So here we are. Thanks for being here, Alec.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
It's good to talk to you. How's everything going?
Everything's going great.
Yeah?
Doing a little relaxing summer, bracing for the heat wave that's imminent.
Nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. So tell me, what's your story? How'd you get into the business?
So I've never figured out if it was a blessing or a curse or a bit of both, but I was one of those children that kind of always knew what they wanted to do with their life.
Okay.
I mean, of course, I thought it would be directing, like so many others who've been on the podcast, but and then I later learned it was really the cinematography. But I was literally, as a small child, when you had to reach up to the TV knob and turning channels. One of my first memories of television was coming across a black and white footage of an actor I learned later was Slim Pickens falling in an atomic bomb to Armageddon.
Oh my gosh.
And I learned years later that was the end of Dr. Strangelove, the Stanley Kubrick film.
Wait, how old were you at this time?
I mean, I'm going to guess 5, 6. Yeah, I had no business watching the end of that movie, you know.
So you remember the image, you just had no idea what it meant.
Correct. And then fast forward, when I was in 4th grade, I'm over at a friend's house, and his parents were like, "Oh, you guys love the Pink Panther. Peter Sellers, you like this movie. It's called Dr. Strangelove." And then we get to the end of the movie, and I'm like, holy cow, that's that thing that haunted me as a child. So I literally went to the library the next day and got a book out on Stanley Kubrick.
No way. Seriously?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And what's crazier, I didn't even learn this till I was a teenager, but Gilbert Taylor shot that. And he also shot Star Wars, which I saw, the first Star Wars, A New Hope, which is also about that period that I would have seen that on television. I went and saw that in the theater.
Amazing.
So as much as I thought these, directors were going to, Kubrick and Spielberg and everybody's like, Gilbert Taylor's visuals probably influenced me as much as anybody's.
Yeah. And actually, the operator who I'm assuming shot that shot, Kelvin Pike, was on this podcast with me. He's 93, I think, in England, and still had so many amazing stories to tell me about that. But I will actually share this with him because he'll get a kick out of that. That's really cool, though. That's amazing.
Yeah, and that eventually led to, me reading a lot more about films. There was a magazine called Starlog Magazine that I would devour through.
Yep.
I knew nothing of the ASC or ASC magazine or where to get it, back then. But VHS was coming in, the home video thing, which was amazing because my eldest sister is about 4.5 years older than me. She was dating a guy for a very long time named Jack Kerrigan. And so I sometimes say I went to the Jack Kerrigan Film School, because he would bring over films on VHS multiple nights a week. And I literally, through my teenage years, watched hundreds of films with him.
Wow.
And he turned me on to, Akira Kurosawa, Woody Allen, Ingmar Bergman, and on and on. And he would give me books about it, too. So I was completely off the deep end by the time I was a teenager.
That's amazing. I mean, like, how lucky are you that you ran into someone like that as opposed to someone who was like, nothing against it, but like, let's watch Goonies again.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was very, very special. And he's no longer with us, but he passed away very young. But I owe him a tremendous bit of, gratitude.
That's really cool. I mean, what was he just a fan of this stuff, or was he actually like a film student or something?
He was an incredible musician, but he loved films.
Wow.
So he just liked watching movies.
That's really, really cool. You know Heather Norton, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know, but you probably do. Heather was Scorsese's assistant during Goodfellas and a couple other things or around that time as well. And this was pre-renting videos, I think, or maybe it was just at that time. But he had someone who would stay up all night and record movies that he would find, in the TV guide at late at night and whatever, off of TV. And he would come in and he'd be like, this is a Japanese director, I want you to watch this. And then we're going to talk about this. And it was like her film school, I mean, just, that's amazing when you run into these people who like have this passion and this knowledge like that. That's great.
Like Quentin Tarantino is one of them, right?
Yeah. So, right. Yeah. Well, he worked in a video store, I think. So I think he kind of came by that honestly, but that's really cool. But did you sort of go, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. I don't know.
Very much so. I mean, growing up in Concord, Massachusetts, with zero relatives in the film business, because you may have heard nepotism sometimes is helpful in this industry. And so I had none of that. I literally knew nobody. But Concord, Massachusetts, when they put cable in the 1980s, again, I was a kid, they made this great deal with Continental Cable, I think was the name of the company. They had to put in an access cable station.
Like a local
public TV studio. Yeah. And they had 3 tube cameras, like a bunch of them. Nobody used the stuff. So I took the classes and got to, learn how to use these cameras and started shooting.
That's awesome.
Stuff like in high school.
In the studio?
Or
okay.
In fact, going through old tapes, archiving them just the other day, I ran across Teachers Are People Too, music video.
That's great.
So we did. I did with a couple of the teachers at the high school. God knows it's on beta. No, it's on 3/4 inch. So yeah.
All right. So anybody out there with a 3/4 inch machine, please contact me or Alec.
I think I'm terrified to see it now, but that's okay.
Fantastic. So basically, they just let you take this stuff whenever you wanted. And would you? I mean, you'd obviously do stuff for them, but would you do your own stuff as well?
Yeah. Well, the 3/4 inch was only studio cameras. You couldn't take them out of the studio. They were like on big Tri-X cables and stuff.
Okay.
But they had a couple. Do you remember the old portable VCRs you would hang over your
totally.
Shoulder and a little tube camera? They had some of those, and eventually I actually bought one for myself. And I would love to have shot film, because back then they were so separate. But I remember Jack telling me, like, you can't buy a Panavision camera, but if you could, they'd be like, I think his number was $20,000, which of course they're way more than that. But this was also 40 years ago.
Yeah, that was $50 million at that time.
Yeah,
by today's standards.
And I was like, that's impossible. You can't spend that kind of money on any equipment, can you?
Now, were there other like-minded people who you were like making stuff with, or were you kind of on your own, or I mean, were there other people who were into this?
I had a couple of friends who were sort of interested in it. They actually got more interested in it later during our college years. So, to fast forward a little bit, I went to college. I was going to go to Emerson, the film program there, but they offered no financial aid. It was crazy expensive. So I decided to go to UMass Amherst. And I figured I was going to go to USC or UCLA or AFI for graduate school, which I never did. So at UMass Amherst, though, this is back when video and film were still separate departments.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? When I was at NYU, I think it was the same way. Yeah, now that I think about it. Well, I don't know about departments, but separate classes for sure. Yeah.
So I took a bunch of film theory classes because I was really interested in what makes a good story.
Yeah.
But I took some 16 millimeter production classes. We had a little black and white 16 millimeter reversal lab at the school.
Whoa.
And this guy, Mark, would stay up all night and run it like some weird night owl, and I would go hang out with him.
This is great.
So, and then meanwhile, on the video side, there was the Union Video Center at UMass Amherst, which when I was a freshman, when would play in 2 TVs, like in the student, union, our lobby.
Yeah.
And then we, over the course of my years there, we got it to every single dorm room on campus. So we went from 2 TVs to like 16,000.
Like piping into everybody's TVs, or
Yeah.
you like tuned into some unused channel or something like that?
No, it was actually cable. It was
wow.
closed, basically closed circuit technically, because it's to the it's to the
cool.
UMass Amherst. So there, I did a ton of production. I mean, I just because of course it was all editing, linear editing, where you get on the tape.
You want to explain to the kids who are listening what that actually means?
Yeah, go for it. Oh, do I want to, or do you want to?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah,
Tell them about jogging back and forth with the tapes and all that stuff.
You had to think very hard about doing it, because every time you would make a new edit, you would lose a generation, because it was not digital. You had an analog tape, you put it in a machine, and you would essentially just record it on another machine.
Yeah.
And they were sophisticated enough you could choose an exact frame, and you could do a dissolve, I think, too, right? Yeah, you had the little toaster, was it called? A little device.
The toaster, that's right. That little like piece of software or something, or what? Yeah, anyway, yeah, okay.
So we would edit on tape, but that's really how I got started.
Yeah, and you had to like commit to your choice. I mean, you could, like you said, you could redo it, but there was a downside to it. And I don't think, was there a way to preview it? Maybe there was at one point. Like to sort of get an idea. I sort of think at some point towards the end there was a way to preview it before you committed to it or something.
I think you're right. I think there was a little, almost like what eventually would have become an Avid or nonlinear editing, but it was so low res, it was just for preview.
That's
so you
exactly
could look
right.
at it, and then you hit. It was like the little. Do you imagine the typewriters that had 2 lines of text? It's that version of editing, right?
Okay, now people are completely confused about what we're talking about, but you and I both know. As a matter of fact, when I went to NYU, I think my brother had one of those quote unquote word processors where you could type a whole line and then you would hit print and it would print the line, so you could change the words on that line, and people would like line up to use it. I should have rented it. But anyway, that's what we came from. That's really cool. So basically though, but like you could probably, like, I would imagine nobody was really watching, in the sense that you could try anything you wanted as long as it, confined to the morals of what they had to do or whatever. But
very much so.
Make your mistakes and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. I don't think I ever had anybody approach me and say, "Hey, I saw that show you did last night on TV."
So what kind of stuff did you do? Like fiction? I mean, or was it?
I did. Yeah. I mean, most people did talk shows or sports. Okay. I very much wanted to
tell stories.
Yeah,
right?
Tell a story. I wrote, directed, shot a couple little shorts. Nothing particularly good, but. And I remember our advisor, Laurel, who was great. She came to me and goes, I was looking for some outtakes for footage to use. And she's like, "You are so clean with the way you shoot." Because I'm preparing to shoot film.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay. You're like,
that was my answer. But she's like, "I can't believe I went through your raw footage and I couldn't find anything." And I was like, "Yeah, because... Now, that's certainly a discipline that's lost today, but I digress. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
No
question about it. It's so funny because it's gone like you could have, but you didn't, and now that's all we do is just leave it rolling. We'll go again. We'll see when the magic strikes, whatever.
Well, poor college students, Beta SP. Was that what we shot on? No, we were Super VHS, but it was still expensive tape stock, for a college kid.
Exactly. Sure. So I mean, were you doing that outside of classes?
Yes, that was all technically extracurricular activities.
Nice. But by the time you came out of college, you probably were like, I know how to edit. I know how to shoot. I mean, not that you know everything, but like you're competent in it.
I had a decent knowledge base. And it's funny because when I got out of school, I said, now what do? I don't know anyone. I just go to LA. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm actually thankful I didn't get this job, but I interviewed for a job in Brattleboro, Vermont, running an access station for the town of Brattleboro.
Oh, boy.
And I didn't get it, and I'm very happy I didn't, because, what if I was still there? Like,
you'd still be there.
What if I had never escaped? Completely different life.
Yeah.
No, so I stumbled around. I stayed out in Northampton, Mass for a year after I graduated. I bought a state. No, not yet. No, rewind. So
wait, what year is this when you graduated college?
I graduated college in 1992.
Okay.
So then I moved to Northampton, Mass for the year after I graduated and tried to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was looking for jobs in production. And I ended up taking this temp job working at a kaleidoscope factory because I thought it would be really neat working with optics.
A kaleidoscope factory?
Yes. Where,
wow.
Like you look through it and see all the colors.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, this could be really cool. And it was terrible. It was like assembly line, the definition of repetitive assembly line
like
work.
One bare bulb swinging back and forth.
Yes. And I'm like, this is bloody awful. I don't know.
The funny thing is, I could see myself going, well, that sounds really cool. I'll try that. I could totally see that. Oh, man. And so you're basically just assembling them 12 hours a day or 10 hours a day or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, wait, Northampton. So did you know Charles Papert back then?
Well, I'm about to bring that up, actually. That's the next gift.
Yeah.
So I'm working at this kaleidoscope factory, and it's terrible. And then I get a call from our faculty advisor of the Union Video Center, Laurel Wilson. She calls me up, and she says, hey, do you remember Charles Papert, the guy who came in and did the Steadicam demo? And I said, well, I missed that demo. I forget why. It was in class or whatever.
Demo at school, you mean?
Yeah, at the school for our Union Video Center. And I was, whatever reason, I did not attend. So I was not at it.
Yeah.
But so Laurel goes to me. He's looking for a production assistant for a corporate video he's shooting. And I was like, I'm in. Yeah. So I call him up, and it turns out there's no money. I'm like, oh, but I quit the job anyway. I quit the kaleidoscope job. I say, okay, I'm going to go PA because at least I'm on a set. And, it's I'm trying to think which video this was. I think it was a corporate video on preventing elderly abuse, or the awareness of elderly abuse. I might be mixing this up because I did a few of these things.
Okay, I'm going to call Charles and see if I can find access to that video. But okay.
He will show you a picture of me holding a boom.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because I just did a panel, not to digress, but at the TIFF and Tech Day out in LA.
Oh, yeah.
And he publicly showed the photo of me holding a boom on.
Charles has every picture of everyone he's ever met.
Yes.
Like, he's amazing that way. That's great. So you met him for the first time, and so he came in down. So he owned a Steadicam.
Yes, he owned an old Model 1.
An old Model 1.
For those kids at home, that's like the very, other than the prototypes, essentially the first sellable Steadicam, which would have been from the late 70s.
Yes, I think like probably maybe 76 to 79 or something like that.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah. Wow, that's
so
really
he was
cool.
DPing this video, and he put it on the Steadicam, and I saw it, and I said, "Holy cow, that thing is extraordinary! It's like physical, it's mental. As many of your previous guests have said, and many of your listeners have said, it was like an automatic light bulb over the head.
That's cool.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting sucked into the electric department. It's all non-union, corporate video. And by the end of the week, they paid me as an electrician.
Yep. I
ended up going to work for Stephen Kay, the gaffer in Boston, who at the time owned like one truck. He's now a company with a bunch. But at the time, he had a lighting truck. So he offered me a job at the end of this week. And I shot a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes videos on a high-8 camera that I had bought. And I gave those tapes to Charles. I'm sure he still has them.
And, he probably does, actually.
Apparently, Steve Kay told me later, he goes, oh, yeah, I watched those videos with Charles. He said, you got an eye. That kid's got an eye. So he never told me that. But
that's great.
Yeah,
that's cool. But you've been doing this all through college, right? So
right.
I mean, you must have learned
in high school, really.
Yeah,
so,
that's right, yeah.
So that's when I became obsessed with Steadicam, and I was like, I have to get a Steadicam somehow.
So let me ask you a question about that. So this is early 90s, basically, and Steadicam is not something everybody knows about. Like you said,
Correct.
You hadn't really seen it before. So
I had thought it was like the little handheld rigs with the little arms on it. Like I was like, I had no real idea what it was.
Yeah, most people didn't know because it's pre-internet and pre-BTS stuff and whatever. So what'd you do? I mean, how'd you pursue that? Like, how do you do that?
About the same time, Charles and I both moved from Northampton back to the Boston area. He lived in the city proper. I moved into, my parents had like an in-law apartment on their house. They had fixed up since I had gone to college. So I actually moved in there to save money because I knew I wanted to get into Steadicam.
Yeah.
And I would bug Charles endlessly, and he very graciously would invite me over and give me lessons.
Oh, that's great. That's not surprising in any way. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of lessons with him. And then he bought a 3A sled at a certain point. Mm-hmm. And so then he felt more comfortable. Actually, he lent me his one on occasion. He still only had the one arm and vest. But
yeah. Okay.
So I would run around wherever. In fact, I finally confided in him this last trip to LA. I was like, I never told you about the time I almost wiped out in your rig. I tried a full-blown run down the hall, and I literally, the thing that prevented me from going over was, this is not my gear.
Yeah, I'm about to lose it. I got to stop. Yeah, that's great.
And I did, and I managed not to go, do a face plant with somebody else's Steadicam.
Oh, but that's very cool. So were you actually doing jobs, or you were just practicing?
No, no. I did do a student film with the old, you'll get a kick out of this, with the old 16 BL.
Oh yeah.
I took a surveillance camera and just like taped it over the lens, and we took grease pencil and drew on the screen for parallax.
Great.
And the shot actually kind of works.
Hey, those were the best gigs because they were just happy to have something. You were like, I don't feel any pressure because like they're not paying me or whatever. You know what I mean? Those were the best gigs early on. Yeah. Absolutely. That's great. So how'd you end up getting into a rig then?
So at this point, I started working for a lot of corporate video companies, working as an electrician. I'd go out for Steve K. Sometimes wait for him as a gaffer, and at other times with some of the local companies, I would be gaffing for them. In fact, ironically, I'll circle back to this later, but I gaffed a NYU student film in the state of Rhode Island that I met Jarnagin on, my now wife.
Wow. Okay.
And
back then,
but we didn't really get to know each other years later. So we'll circle back to that in a bit. But that was one of the things I gaffed.
Yeah. Okay.
I really wanted to learn lighting because that's the thing. Other than interview lighting, a low kit in college, I didn't know anything about lighting.
Yeah.
So to learn about HMIs and lighting through windows and all that kind of stuff, this is when I started to do that.
Sure.
But I started walking into banks. I came up with a business plan, and sometimes I shake my head and go, where did this come from? But, I was 24 years old. I walked into multiple banks with pictures and brochures of Steadicams trying to get a business loan to buy a used Steadicam.
Thinking that they would actually, clearly you thought, but did you think it was a long shot, or were you like, they can't say no, this makes perfect sense?
I had this whole business plan, and eventually somebody said yes. It was not a lot of money. It was $19,200. I bought an old beat-up Model 2 Steadicam, mostly for the arm and vest.
Yeah.
And eventually I had to Chuck Jackson rebuild the arm and all that stuff. But so then I went to my corporate clients that had already DPing like real small stuff, like accident recreations, legal depositions, real exciting stuff.
Accident recreations. That's fantastic. That's great.
Yeah, if you ever need an excuse to get out of jury duty, which I have served, I do believe in it, but I did once use that excuse. I've shot accident recreations. I don't trust any of you, and they threw me out of that room so fast.
Oh my gosh, that's great. I will say I've heard a lot of early job descriptions, but accident recreation, you're the first person who's mentioned that, so kudos. And so did you ever take a class, or was it just Charles and figuring stuff out?
It was really Charles at first. Eventually I went, a few years later I went and to one of Garrett's small workshops.
Oh wow.
So it was mostly that, and then I practiced endlessly. The apartment I had, even though it was an in-law apartment, was quite big because it was a converted basement with a pool table. So every Thursday night, I would throw a cocktail party, and I would just shoot my friends playing pool for hours with a Steadicam.
That's it.
Before I told anyone I bought it. That was a great piece of advice from Charles, is just learn how to get pretty good before you start.
Great advice for anybody, by the way. Get good at whatever you're doing before you start selling yourself at it, because it's a double-edged sword, right?
Yes.
Sometimes
I had a big
don't.
steel practice cage, which I found a local machinist, because back then that was necessary. A retired Raytheon electrical engineer. His hobby was making trains and mechanical stuff. So he loved being my machinist.
Your tinker. Oh, that's
and
fantastic.
He would charge me so little. And he would always say, wait till I see your name in the credits, and then I'll charge you more.
That's cool. Oh, yeah.
And then
cool.
He's passed away. Paul, oh boy. I'm blanking on his last name. But his widow actually wrote me a letter when it happened and said, I know he was very fond of you. It was very sweet.
Oh, that's really great. And it's like those are those sort of like unsung people in our lives, who just like were there for whatever it was. And it sounds like he was the gadget guy, right? And that we all have. And you just, they end up saving you from time to time. That's fantastic.
I had no money. Like because one of the first things I did to this Model 2 sled was get rid of the old CP batteries and put an Anton Bauer mount on it.
Oh, wow.
He machined the parts for it, though.
Yeah.
Because I knew I could get Anton Bauer batteries anywhere in the Boston area. And, you know, and I think I bought 2 and then to practice with, and then eventually 4 and chargers. And
it's interesting to me because like technology has become so accessible now, you know, price wise and everything. And also I think people don't think of spending more than we used to. And it's like, I don't think people realize how daunting it was. And you were like, well, I have 4 batteries. So, I mean, I guess if I keep them charged constantly, I can get through this job with it. You know, that's all I can afford.
The level of craziness. I mean, I had bought Pro Pack 13 batteries because they had a lower voltage, which was good because you could fry some of the old film cameras if you put a Pro Pack 14 on it.
Uh-huh.
But all the video rental companies had Pro Pack 14s. I didn't want to rebalance, so I literally had Velcro and a little weight for the weight difference between the 2 batteries, so I could use my 13s or 14s seamlessly when I was shooting
that's hilarious.
videos.
Did you have one of those old rigs where like you would turn on the first switch, wait, and then turn on the second switch and hope that the monitor fired up?
Yes, very much so. I kept the Model 2 sled. I redid the armored vest. I did the vest myself, buying plastic from Peter Abraham. And then I was going to modify that 2 to a single post, but the Pro came out and everything was dropping. The Master Series was announced, so I ended up buying George Billinger's old hot rodded 3A off of Pro. That was part of my relationship with Pro.
Wait, you talking about the one that was like red and black or whatever with the ABS plastic, that thing?
It was a 3A base with a DeRose post, the Donkey Box 1, and a Pro, or sorry, DeRose, it was called at the time, junction box at the top.
Yep.
And I had called Deborah Peters and George Paddock, and they had said, well, this, you know, George Billinger just traded this in for his Pro. I was in awe of the movies it had done. So that was a sled. I then used that sled for 4 or 5 years.
For everybody who's listening who has no idea what we're talking about, this is back when the only Steadicams there were the ones that were off the shelf. And then people just took hacksaws to them and turned them into, and then parts started coming out and we started making them better and mishmash. So this is sort of a Frankenstein, but very well made Frankenstein, I'm sure, rig. And the other thing is you were in Boston, so you didn't have someone like Bob DeRose, you know, out there who knew how to make these things, you know, for everyone that we all had and whatever. So it must have been amazing to get this stuff that had all this, like, you know, sort of custom made stuff to it.
Yeah, no, and I did a lot more mods to it. There was a Steadicam newsletter from the SOA, which is a physical newsletter. Yeah, they did it a few times a year, so I'd read that thing like it was. Like holy, you know, like the Holy Bible.
I actually remember you'd get that, and there'd be those grainy pictures, and you're like looking at the grainy picture with a magnifying glass, trying to see what someone's done to their rig or whatever. So let me go back to something you said. You know, Charles mentioned to you, like, don't tell people you have the rig until you know what you're doing. You know, and I totally understand that concept. What's the point mentally where you go, I'm now a Steadicam operator. I can do this?
That's a great question. Because I remember when I started using it on, clients I had that I had been a gaffer for. And I said, look, I've been shooting for too. I said, I have this thing. I think it really would help some of these videos. So I started using it there and developing some confidence. And then, Boston's a very small market. I'm trying to think when Charles moved out to L.A. He went to L.A. at a certain point, which actually caused me to stay in Boston a little bit longer because I was like, I got to get out of here. But clearly, we're all bumping our heads on the ceiling of Boston.
Was it just really the two of you, or were there other people?
There was one or two others. There was a guy in Vermont. There was Brant Fagan in New Hampshire. There's Jeff Silverman in Vermont, Brant Fagan in New Hampshire, and John McNeil, who was kind of retired already, who was really running a rental company, but he still owned a rig too.
Gotcha.
And he actually became a bit of a mentor to me too, because he had a 3A or a 3 when I still had my Model 2, and I used his rig on a couple.
Student
films and things like that.
Yeah.
So I started shooting some, student films for BU students and Emerson students on 16, and I'd be my own DP and my own operator and my own Steadicam and running around, with a light meter in one hand, the sling on my shoulder, all the things I would, shake my head at today and tell people not to do. But actually, I wouldn't say not to do that. It's one thing at that level to do it. It's kind of
time and place, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's a learning curve, I think we all tell people to do something different than we did. I would say go be an AC, go work in a rental house, do the normal path, but we all get there eventually. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, we try anyway. So how long did it take you after you got your rig to think like I can go out and do whatever somebody's asking me?
Let's see. I bought the rig in I think November of '94. I did a indie feature. David Tamez was the DP called Never Met Picasso, which actually had some real actors in it in late '95, so about a year later.
Okay.
I did a couple pretty simple shots around a party. And I remember being a little nervous, it was like, whoa, here we go.
and so tell me about that, because you haven't really, have you been on a feature before that? Have you worked with real actors?
Only as an electrician.
Okay.
Non-union electrician too. I had my cup of coffee as an electrician.
So what was the process like of suddenly realizing like, oh, I have a place at the table now. You know what I mean? I have a voice in this. People are looking at me for answers of things. Was that overwhelming or?
Yeah, I think some of it was diffused by the fact I was just praying my gear would all work. Patrick Quinn, who is now a very established operator, was pulling focus for me. We had flown in or rented the Genio follow focus. This is before I had anything myself, Sure. Yep. I just remember trying to make that work with him, and we did the shots, and they made the movie, and I guess it was okay.
Okay, all right, there you go. Now, were you doing any conventional camera operating at this point, or was it just
only for myself on small stuff I was DPing?
So when did you start working as a conventional operator as well as a Steadicam operator?
When I went to New York, which is probably the next chapter of this conversation.
And so was Boston just getting too small, or?
Yeah, but Boston was small. I assumed I was going to go to LA, just because the weather's good, the film business is there, all of that stuff.
Why not?
And then Dave Tamez, who I just mentioned, who was the DP of Never Met Picasso, calls me one day and says, "Hey, I'm supposed to be shooting this short film for a Columbia student in New York City, but I got a real gig. Do you want to shoot it?" And I went, "Hell yeah." I barely knew New York.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah. I read the script, had a talk with the writer-director, John Aiken, good guy. I said, yeah, I do want to do it. And I have a thing called a Steadicam, and told him about that. And he was like, cool. I'm like, I think I want to bring my assistant with me from Boston, guy named Kurt Jones, who I was sort of teaching Steadicam, even though it was teaching the blind, arguably, because I was only a year in. But so we go down to New York, and my gaffer was Jendra Robinson, now Jendra Jarnagin. And I was like, yeah, I know you. We met 4 or 5 years earlier, and we... long story short, we fell madly in love, and I moved to New York less than a year later, and I've not left since.
Well, that's a good reason to move. All right, very good. So is it suddenly like what's the process of going from a small market like Boston to New York at that point in your career? I mean, did other Steadicam operators welcome you, or
yes. Yeah, no, it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I moved July 4th, 1997 to New York.
Oh, so that's not a good day to move.
Yeah, no, it's very hot. But I would, Jendra was introducing me to all her NYU alum who was starting to shoot indie stuff and music videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I started working, it was a busy time then. The unions didn't really have the low budget contracts then either. So things were pretty much non-union up till a few $1 million at least, which was more money back then. So, and eventually, I forget who introduced me to T.W. Lee, who's a DP, I believe he's a college professor now. But he came to me with this indie film, and he's like, I think I want to just concentrate on lighting. Do you want to operate it for me?
Cool.
And I was like, yeah. So that was my first credit as a camera Steadicam op.
Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, it's called Friends First and Foremost.
Okay. And how'd you do?
I did good, I think, because I had DP'd a lot, and it was pretty low stakes. There was not huge, it was not a huge budget thing. So
what was the biggest learning curve about being on a camera, besides the technical, besides maybe, and it sounds like maybe that wasn't because you've been shooting your own stuff.
Working with a dolly grip, probably. Although that really came more later when I started real projects as a B camera, steady camera.
Was it the kind of thing of like, I don't know how to be an A camera operator and you don't know how to be a dolly grip, so we'll figure it out together?
Yeah. I mean, I would still I would file that film under the still very young and scrappy project.
That's all good. But, going back for a second, it occurs to me, you were saying it's 1997, and the thing that you probably benefited from was still early enough that people were like, wait a minute, you have a Steadicam? Like, oh cool. Yes. So everybody's interested. That's a calling card.
Well, and I'm sure that's why TW was smart enough to say, hey, why don't you do a camera? Because now it gets the Steadicam on for the entire film instead of a couple of days.
There you go. Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm just sort of realizing that now.
No.
I think that was in 98. So, but eventually word gets out, Sandy Hayes took, Charles had told me to call him. I called him. It turns out he grew up in Concord, Mass, a couple miles from my house, but he was all in different schools than I was.
Oh, no way. Oh, that's smart.
So then I remember I had a shoot coming up one night and my 3A wasn't turning on, the tube thing. So I called Larry McConkey to get the nerve up, and he called me back a few minutes later and he talked to me for like an hour. And then I discovered he was in China. It's a crazy guy calling me from China.
None of this surprises me at all. But that's the amazing thing about it, especially when we all came up, but I think it's still somewhat, is like I wanted the jobs that you had and you wanted the jobds that I had. But if one of us was in trouble on a job, everybody came to your rescue because like we all knew what it was like to not have your monitor turn on and whatnot,
Very much. And, actually something you just said reminds me of, this is also when the Steadicam forum kind of started really was a thing. I mean,
on AOL?
Yeah, it was AOL originally in the 90s, in 94, 95, because I was getting information then, too, about the early rigs.
Okay.
But then we had moved over to our own URL that Tim Tyler had set up, and I became a moderator of that. And so I met a lot of people online.
Oh, simply you were moderating it, you're saying?
Yeah, myself, Lewis Pooleye, Janice Arthur, Eric Fletcher. I think we were the original. Oh, and Erwin Landau. We were the original moderators.
Well, there you go. So you're meeting people right there anyway. That's fantastic. That's a great way to do it.
And that led to a lot of day playing steady because people were still day playing, and I eventually found my way on to some real sets. Sex and the City, Third Watch, doing steady camera day playing, and that's when you're like, okay, now this is the real deal. But
now what was that? Sounds like that was stepping up to a next level for you. Those kind of things,
very much so. That was like 99, 2000, and then 2001 hit, and you couldn't buy a job in New York for a couple of years because nobody wanted to
shut down for a while.
Yeah, everything.
But going back to those things, so going to that next level? What do you remember? What the biggest hurdles there? Like the biggest sort of, oh my God, I've got to now do this, or I've got to learn some new set of skills, or
actually, I did an indie film with Jeffrey Erb, who's a great DP, who's since passed away, with Doug Hart pulling focus for me. He's also passed away.
Wow. Yeah. Doug was at AC for like 50 years or something like that? Yeah. I think I was around forever. Yeah.
So this was 99, because this was before I got married. But I was beta testing the Bartek. I had the prototype of the Bartek focus device. So for those at home, that just was a cheaper, reliable version of remote focus equipment.
Yeah, basically it's like the only way that you got a remote focus system was spending a lot of money, and this was the first time Jim Bartels made it, right?
Yes, correct.
And he basically was like, here's an inexpensive one that will work and not burn up and the motors won't burn up and whatever. Yeah.
And so doing that, I was just like a day on that film, but I had a couple real actors in it, but Jeff was great. He was super calm. Doug was great. And then Doug actually introduced me to Richie Crudo, I think, or actually no, Gendra did. anyway, eventually I joined the union in 1999, and that led to doing some of these, indie films in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
As slow as it did become after 9/11. And then eventually I got a V-camera Steadicam job on a TV show, Love Monkey, 2005. Short-lived show, but that's really when you're like, okay, that's the difference between A and B, and working with dolly grips.
So tell me about starting to work with the dolly grip on that level, like, day in and day out with top-notch people. What's the learning curve like with that?
It's spectacular. I think the biggest thing to know is when to keep your mouth shut. Right. Then as you get more experience, you start to, if you day play, you kind of test the dolly grip. You watch them to see which way they're going to put the chassis. And before they get on the track, if it's the wrong way, you're like, hey. But, and if it's the right way, you're like, good. They know what's up. All that stuff. But you learn that from dolly grips, right?
Sure. Yeah. The reality is, you saying that, that they're testing you as well. Yeah. I mean, when you first meet it, you're all testing each other. You're all sort of like, and I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm quietly looking around the thing and, okay, I can check that person off my list. I can trust them. I see what they're doing. I got to worry about this person and that,
Right.
Because you're trying to realize who are your allies and who are your liabilities, I guess is the right word.
Absolutely. And, if every time you want a part for the dolly, if they have to call it to the truck, you're like, that's not good.
Yeah. So, I mean, early on when you see those problems as a B camera operator, is it hard to step up and sort of go, no, it has to be done this way? I mean, because that's a whole nother set of, and how to get what you need without ruffling feathers, without stepping on toes and all that stuff. How do you ease into that?
The show Love Monkey, Peter Nolan was our A operator. He was a very accomplished operator, and he was great because he really kept an eye on me as the B op and made sure I had the tools. And Gary Martone was the key grip, who I had done some indie films with, and he and I got along great. And he was just very impressed that I kept the Steadicam level. I remember him saying that way back then. So I had it pretty easy. I mean, they gave me a really good dolly grip, and I had it pretty easy.
They were taking care of you. Yeah,
I was taken care of. And then you watch how A operators run a set, and I really did that for quite some time. Before going back to A camera. And if I had a stint as A camera, I just remind myself, whenever I'm doing a Steadicam shot, I am the A camera. So don't be afraid. Use that same confidence and personality and just apply it now to a different tool. Easier said than done a little bit, but I'm trying to think of some terrible mistake I made. I think I buried most of them, but
that's the thing, is that they're hard to pull back, no question. But it's funny because I think the people who came into this the way that we did, I mean, back when it was like day playing and, we're going to throw you on C camera. And then, we're going to have you on B camera and Steadicam. Like you did sort of go, I'm in the back seat. I'm watching the show and I'm part of the show. And then, hey, you're up in the foreground with the Steadicam now, and you got to run the show, but now you can step back and be on B camera again. So you got like little tastes of it here and there.
Yes.
It was a little bit like training wheels, right? And weirdly enough, now that I'm thinking about it, I think it would have been harder to go, okay, you're on the A camera you're on the dolly on A camera and running the set for this shot, because you've got no more experience there. But when you put the Steadicam on, people are like, oh, well, he knows what he's doing because he's running around with the Steadicam, so we're going to listen to him, So I think we benefited from that, don't you think?
Oh, very much so. Yeah. I mean, you obviously stepped into a very large show. I mean, ER was your first major show, correct? I mean,
it was by a long shot.
Right. But I would imagine being the Steadicam sort of helped that confidence of being the A op there, because it was kind of one and the same on that show. Right?
There's no question. Look, I remember very specifically Terrence Nightingale, who was the camera assistant and eventually became the operator when I left and saved my ass. I remember, I'd go, so we're going to be over here on a 35 millimeter, and he'd shake his head, and I'd go on the wheels and he'd shake his head no. And I'd go on the fluid head and he'd shake his head yes. And like, cause he knew what my strengths and my weaknesses were.
Yeah.
And he would save me from myself. And even when we were, not that we did dolly track that much, but when we would put it down, and maybe because we didn't do it that much, he would be keeping an eye that I wasn't he'd go, don't you want to be like a foot back here in case she comes around that car? Oh, okay. Yeah. So you have those people who, so the Steadicam, like I could put it on and wing it around. Nothing like Guy B by any means, but I could do it and get it done. And the rest, I just assumed I would get fired because I didn't know what I was doing.
Your story reminds me of Frank Renato. I was day playing on Third Watch. I'd done a bunch of Steadicam, and it was great. At the end of the days, we got to shoot this thing as a oneer, and it's just a simple panning shot between characters on dialogue. And I don't know the cast. I don't know who's who.
And you're talking about a conventional camera.
Yes, correct. This is a conventional camera, and now I've been with the fire team all day on that show because it followed police, fire, and ambulance. Now suddenly they pull up an ambulance. It's cast members I haven't met.
Nice.
And they're like, we got to get this in like 10 minutes. Go. And Frank, back when you pulled focus on the knob, was just whispering in my ear, which person to pan to right before you saved my bacon.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I worked with Frank a couple of times when I was there. He was great. And that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, the other thing is now on video, I will often, if I'm, day playing on a show or whatever, I'll watch where the boom is going.
Yes.
I'll be like, oh, that's where we're going now. Because my thing is not only do I not know the cast, but I'm terrible with names. So they can tell me everybody's name and I'm like, wait, which one's Janie? And by then I've missed, I've missed a shot. But can you talk to that for a minute about how, look, you are in the driver's seat on a lot of this, but it takes an entire circus to pull all this off, right?
Very much so. One of the things I love operating in general, but about being the A operator is really, working with the set dressers. I love young, eager set dressers who want to be filmmakers. I've been privileged to work with some great ones, and some older ones too. But I mean, when people are just like, they'll go to me, hey, well, where should I put this in the frame? And I'll look at them and go, well, that's the frame. Where do you think it should go? And I just find engaging people like that early on, 9 out of 10 times is the way to go, because then they become very excited to be part of the process. And it's also self-serving because over the course of a season, they're just going to go do that. And it frees up my brain space to be doing with everything else,
Yeah.
So,
but it's funny because I think I do the same thing, but then there's that thing of some people have it and some people don't, right?
Yes.
So there's that thing where you're trying, like you said, you're testing people early on, but you're sort of going, well, where do you think it should be? And trying to see if their view of things is the same as yours, right?
Correct. And again, there's an art to all of this too, because you don't want to sound confrontational or indifferent or indecisive, because those things are all deaths to us too, right?
Exactly. There's no question. I'll tell you one thing that I have a trouble with, which maybe you do, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, is that my thing with set dressers early on is I always go, look, I just want to be really clear. Like, I totally respect what you do, and what you do is fantastic, and I need you. But I'm just going to tell you, I know myself. There are times when I'm probably going to lean in but I'll tell you, and judge something or whatever. And it's not because it's probably more because I can't explain what I want to you as well as I can just go and do it. And it's a failing in me, not in you. Do you know? And I'm always so concerned that I'm going to ruffle feathers or make people feel like they're not necessary or whatever. Do you run into that at all?
Oh, very much. I do pretty much the exact same speech. Yeah.
That's good to know.
They're usually fine with it. Just let them know. And of course, if a DP used that speech on us and walked up and said, "I was going to tell," we would lose our mind. But
yeah, it's exactly right. But it's one of those things that, yeah, and you're in the heat of the moment, and you're in the set, and they're not in the set, and whatever. But yeah, it's funny you bring up set dressers. I don't think people talk about them enough, because a good set dresser, like when I get on set and I meet the set dresser and they're excited and they have, they're like, what about that? And what about this? And what about that? And it's just the best thing in the world for me, because it means like, oh, you're here to play. Like you're not waiting to get off set to watch a soccer match on your phone or whatever,
Absolutely. And I would say on set dresser means on set, because I can remember early on sometimes, no names or shows, but be like, I don't know where you are. And then I would just start moving stuff, and they'd come in and go, what? And I'm like, hey, here's the deal.
You got to be here.
You got to be here.
Yeah. At what point did you make the jump to full-time, I'm assuming mostly, A camera? Like how long did that take into your career?
So I did I went from Love Monkey, and then I had a string of, in the mid-2000s, what I would call a middle-class film, which sort of disappeared, but, enough money to shoot on 35 and have real actors and nobody in capes or not superhero films, just good, honest films. And I did be steady on a couple of those, and I worked for some really good A operators, and I would watch what they would do. And then, so I guess it would be a couple years after that. So probably almost 10 years after I moved to New York, like 2007, 8. I would have to look at my own IMDb.
Yeah.
But
Do you remember like one of the first things you moved up to A camera full time on that you were on for the whole show?
I did a short-lived show called Canterbury's Law that I started as A camera, and then that lasted an episode, and we had a streaming director, and then I became the B camera Steadicam up.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, which I will talk about because it's a long, long time ago.
Yeah, please do. Actually, I think that's important because there's not only what happened, but it's how do you deal with that, because that's a setback, right? I mean, at the moment.
It was. And the Tom Houghton was the DP, wonderful DP, and he just said, that this director is quite the screamer, which is not good to have that kind of target on your back. And I forget who told me. Was it a Dolly Group? Somebody... Maybe it was my first assistant actually said, the problem is you're giving them what they're asking for, not what they want. And, there's that old saying, right? And obviously there are times when people ask you something and they literally mean that. But I never forgot that lesson. I was like, okay, I'm going to make sure. So yeah, you learn a lot from that. You feel a little rejected. And then that job ended and I somehow landed another A camera Steadicam up and that went great. So, it's...
Now, when you went back to B camera, I mean, is there a mental game to sort of pushing all that doubt and all that everything else out of you just so you can do your job? I mean, do you recall that at all?
There would have been a little bit of that. I knew it wasn't my panning and tilting. It was I needed better communication with the director.
Let me ask you about that, though. Do you think that you could have dealt with it differently in the sense that you would have fixed the problem, or do you think it was an insurmountable problem where he decided? Because we've all seen this. There are directors who go, "You are the problem, not me,"
yes.
and I'm going to make sure that everybody knows that you're the problem.
I think I could have 100% pivoted with a simple discussion.
Gotcha.
But for a business that thrives itself on communication. We do very little of it sometimes in this business, when especially when it comes to that kind of thing.
But that's a learning lesson, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you learned from that, like you're saying right here.
Yeah, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? So
there's that too. I think the other thing that's important, and I don't know if you realized this at the time. I know. I mean, look, one of my first things I've said before was Space Above and Beyond, and I was the B camera operator. For some reason, for a while, I thought I was the A camera operator, but I was not. I was the B camera operator, and I lasted 4 days, and they fired me on the 5th day, and and it destroyed me. But I absolutely deserved it. I did not know. I didn't understand what my job was. I thought I was there to, like the Steadicam and then some other stuff. And I was like, no, the other stuff is and I'm supposed to be finding shot. I had no idea. And truthfully, the next big job I got as a conventional camera operator, other than day playing, was ER. And I think had I not been fired off of that, I would have just never learned. Oh, there's so much more to this. Do you know?
No, actually, and I just remembered they brought Billy Coleman in to be the A operator.
Okay.
On that job, and I went to B, and I walked up to him, shot day one, and just said, "Hey," I shook his hand, introduced myself, and said, "If you need anything, let me know." And we became fast friends, and I learned so much about being an A camera operator from Billy Coleman. So
that is so great. By the way, and what a great move from you, because you realize like he's in a really bad spot too. Like he probably doesn't want to come in and there's potentially a lot of animosity here and all these other things. So I'm going to take that off of him. And I'm sure
he told me that later. That. Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. No, that's a lesson right there. Because the thing is, it's not his fault that happened to you. And I've had that situation before, especially when you're replacing people, and it's like, look, you're not getting let go because I was available. I'm coming in because you're getting let go, and that, and it happens, right? That's part of the business, unfortunately.
Well, years later, I was called into day play on I think it was just a couple of days on a film shooting in New York to replace somebody, A camera, steady cam, and a German DP who done a lot of big budget stuff. And I came in and I just was like, okay, he really wants someone to run the show. So I instantly started working with the set dressers. But then I got on to talking about how, the airy cam movement was related to the movie cam movement. He was Austrian, not German. So he was like, I put him at ease.
Yeah.
And so then I called the operator. And I told him, I said, look, don't beat yourself up over this. And
the person
I replaced. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't call him before because it was like one of those jobs. Can you come in tomorrow?
Yeah.
Or letting someone go. But I eventually called him and we're friends to this day, and he's gone on to do plenty of great stuff. But I was like, hey, this is really not about you. It's about, in this case, it's about making the DP just feel relaxed.
Yeah.
And I think he was looking like a nervous young kid, which he was, and I'm sure I was at a different time. So.
Well, since we're talking about it, it's like, I think that's the right thing to do is to contact them probably after the fact. Before the fact, it's not, and you don't know who knows what, and it's not your place.
Correct.
And the other thing, though, I think people have to realize is there are some people who are going to think, oh, this is great that you're contacting me. And there's some people who are going to be angry and they're going to hold on to that forever. And that there's nothing you can do about that, because I've had both. I don't know if you've had, but I've had things where it's like, well, you shouldn't have come in. And it's like,
well, come on.
I don't know what to tell you. It's a tough situation. The one really tough one that I had was I had to replace someone during COVID, and it meant sitting in quarantine for 2 weeks while this person who didn't know that they were being replaced was sitting there. And I actually said, when it was sort of becoming aware what was going on, I said, okay, we're in a very weird time here. So I actually don't want to know much information because I don't know. This is a really weird situation.
Yeah.
Like, if you let him go on Thursday and I come in Friday morning, I'll call him Friday night. But the fact that I'm sitting here with this knowledge for 2 weeks, it was a bizarre situation. And we talked afterwards, and he definitely was not happy with it. And I was like, what should I have done differently? I don't know.
Yeah.
I could have called you then, and it would have made those 2 weeks absolutely horrid for you. And for I don't know what you want, and I understand that. I mean, that's the way that goes, but that's part of this business, unfortunately. And like you said, it seemed like that director had a target on your back, and sometimes that just happens, right?
Yep.
Yeah, to everyone. And I think that's actually a big thing, is people realizing like this happens to all of us. You work long enough, it happens to everyone.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
It's when you learn from when you hear about this happening from all these great, amazing people. Yeah. And you're like, wow, that happened to you. But exactly. Yeah. You do it long enough, it's going to happen.
So I want to ask you about a specific movie. You did the movie Coda, which was such a lovely movie. It was like this little, and it was also one of those things which is always great for me. Like I didn't know anything about it, and I saw it, like I just happened to stumble upon it before it got crazy, and which is always the best, because usually when people build it up, it's like you start having a different. But so the lead actor, well, was he the lead? I guess he was the lead. The gentleman who was deaf in it.
Troy Costner. That's supporting actor.
But anyway, he seemed like the lead. It was sort of about him. So he's deaf, right?
Yes.
How does that work?
That's a great question. And in prep, a lot of this came up too. It changes what the close-up is. Yeah. Because there's no such thing as an off-screen line with sign language.
Wait, say that again. There's no such
thing as an off-screen line in sign language.
Because they wouldn't hear it.
Right. You can't. So every...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you've got to include the hands.
The hands I thought of, but I didn't... There's no such thing as an off-screen... Yeah.
Yeah, Sean, the director, and Paola, the DP, they figured this out in prep, and... this is one of those where I literally had read the script and I was like, oh my God, I got to do this movie. And I had come highly recommended to the DP. So it was like a no-brainer. Yeah. I had to do it. But so we were all talking in prep about this stuff, but it's like, oh yeah, you can't, parts of the film, well, are where people talking a lot. Amelia, the daughter, speaks, and the romantic arc and all that. But the scenes in the family, in the house with the family, or all the scenes with the family members, everything, all the close-ups have to have the hands.
Sure.
And you either have to block it in a way where somebody comes into the frame, or it has to get cutty.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't just hear Dave go, wow. You need to cut to.
I never really thought about that. That's really, well, actually, it probably has a little more to do with the editing than the shooting, but you have to be cognizant of it, in other words.
Yes.
But how was it working with him as far as, I'm assuming he reads lips.
Yes, he does. It was great.
Communication-wise, though, for what you needed to do?
Yeah. I wish I had learned more in sign language, you do things, you point, and frankly, you touch him. You grab their shoulder and say, hey, and you point to a mark, or you do this a little bit.
And did you utilize showing him what the frame was much more than you normally would?
Not that I recall. No.
Huh. Interesting.
No. He's done a lot of theater. He was aware of the camera, certainly. And Marley Maitland was very aware of the camera. She was fantastic.
Yeah, well, she's been doing this for, 30, 40 years or whatever. I mean, an old pro, right? Yeah.
And she actually has hearing aids that allow her to hear, but she would take them out when we were filming.
Really?
Yes, which I was incredibly impressed with.
Just because she wanted to be true to the character.
The character and the other actors.
And the other actors.
I don't want to speak for her, but that's the way I recall it. That's
fascinating.
Yeah,
wow.
Which I have mad respect for her.
That's really interesting. I that's what I wanted to ask you. Is I figured that there had to be some interesting stories from this.
Well, and Amelia, the teenage girl, the lead, she learned to sing for this movie.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
She learned to sing, and I think she knew sign, but I might be mistaken on that. It's been a while. She might have learned both.
Wow.
But yeah, incredible.
That's quite. I mean, that final sequence. I think it's the final sequence where she's auditioning, and it's so. I mean, that must have been actually. It seems like it would be a kind of thing that must have been hard to shoot actually, and not get overwhelmed because it's so filled with emotion. It was amazing.
Yeah, that scene, the scene when she sings to Troy, her father, in the back of the pickup truck.
Back of the pickup truck?
Yes.
Oh, I forgot it. That's so great.
And she takes his hand or puts it on her throat. That choked me up. And that's one of those scenes, too. You didn't. I think we just did one or two takes.
Really?
If I'm remembering correctly, it was just really honest and great.
The other thing that I loved about that scene, and I remember when I was watching it, and I think maybe at the end when I found out it was you, is I was so happy that it was just simple and it wasn't trying to make more. Like what was going on was all you needed. You just needed to watch it and let it unfold, and it wasn't some like crazy, I don't know what it could have been, but I remember that scene. I forgot. Well, I hadn't forgotten about it, but now you remind me of that scene where they're sitting in the back of the pickup truck. It's just it was incredible. That was really amazing. You have any other stories from that? As far as I just think it's sort of fascinating shooting with people who can't hear what we take for granted.
Well, Sean Heder, the writer-director, I give her so much credit because she was originally offered a lot bigger budget to make this film, but they wanted to put all these hearing actors in it, as I understand it.
Really?
And she was like, no way.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
So to have it win Best Picture and her to get Best Writer made me so happy. And the other thing that came out of that film, which I'm tickled with to this day, is that you can go in and see a open caption film now. Meaning, with subtitles, without having to do anything special, for hearing impaired people, for deaf people to go in, they can pick a screening in any theater across this country and generally see pretty much any movie with subtitles.
Because they have a device with them
though it used to be they had to have this device, but now you can just go see it's called open caption. You can just go see it. You
mean you're saying there are certain showings that have captions on them? Yes. Oh, I wasn't even aware of that.
And that's, I think, large part because of Coda winning Best Picture.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Now that I've said this, watch it have disappeared. The ones are fad, but I don't think so.
No, I'll look for it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like unfortunately, I go to the movie theater so rarely now. I wish I went more. I need to go more. The thing that total sidebar, but I can't deal with being in a movie theater and someone's on their phone or I just like, if everybody would be respectful of the movie and be like, this is what you're here for. Get off your phone, stop talking. Anyway, whatever.
No, New York audiences tend to be a little better, but still not always. And then you find yourselves playing a little snobbery, like, oh, I'm going to go to the Angelica and not this theater because hopefully you get more people who behave themselves. Or,
And then, but it only takes one person turning on their phone and their face is glowing, and suddenly you're like out of it. Anyway, that's really wonderful, though. That's so cool to hear. What other shows have you done that stand out in your memory as amazing experiences that either that you learned from or from the experience of shooting them? Or
one of the last films I did as an operator, it was the second to last one, was called Fire Island, and it is for Hulu, but it is really one of the first openly gay rom-coms, just completely unabashedly raunchy rom-com with all gay characters. And I can't tell you how many people just texted me after they saw that film and said how much it moved them. So that makes me happy, right?
Oh, that's really cool. It's neat when you're involved in something that actually means something to you, right? And makes a difference in someone, and you hear back from people. That's great. Did they shoot it on Fire Island?
Fire Island only allowed us there after Labor Day, so we shot most of it in Long Island.
Yeah.
And the production designer, whose name I do not remember because I was the AOP, I've had him in a DP because that's one of the things you learn. That's when you learn just how good production designers really are.
Yeah.
Sorry, I digress. But she did an amazing job recreating the clubs on Fire Island. Because then we got to Fire Island and shot the exteriors of the clubs. And I would go into the club and I was like, holy cow.
This is it.
This is it. She just made it like shrunk it down a little to fit on the stage. But I could not believe really cool. How well she did and aged it. And
I'll tell you what that made me think of is I interviewed Phil Alden Robinson, who did Sneakers and the Kevin Costner movie, Field of Dreams, and a bunch of other things. And he said at one point, which was really funny, he said, you start your movie in prep and it's you and the production designer and you're just dreaming and you're creating these worlds. And then the director of photography signs on and the production designer realizes that your marriage is now over. And there's a new marriage that's come in, and he goes, and it's not, there's no negativity in it. It's just, and now we need to move on to a more concrete, it's just, and I'd never thought about it before, but it was like, yeah, but it is funny that you say that because as an operator, I don't have a lot of interaction with the production designer because they're usually 4 stages ahead, You would hope. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you're hanging out with a set dresser who works for the production designer.
Yeah, who, if they're good, is transmitting the information that the production designers. But when I've been involved in prep, one of the things that I have done is I've said, is there any way that I can walk the stages, if there are stages or whatever, with the production designer? And they're like, why? And I said, I'd like to understand what's important to them in this set, so that when we're lining it up, I can go, yeah, this is great. I know the production designer really wanted to see out that window. Just to be another part of that. And that's always been so fascinating to me because they have a whole different take than we have on it. Right.
Right.
It's amazing. So when did you make the jump to DP?
I came into a show called The Good Fight, the Robert and Michelle King show with Christine Baranski, which is actually a spinoff of The Good Wife. I came in season 2 and started doing some tandems. Literally, Mozart in the Jungle had ended at an odd time of year, and Renee Kraut, who I had known, my focus puller from the indie days, had disappeared for years because he was on A Good Wife. And then Good Fight calls me up and says, "Hey, you want to do we have a tandem. You want to come in and do some Steadicam?" And I literally said to him, "Well, what's a load-in situation in parking like?"
It's time to move up.
Yeah. No. This is still up, but the irony is like that question, and then these people became such an important part of my career.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, it's super easy." So I came in, and it's really when I got to know Fred Murphy, the DP, and Brooke Kennedy, the directing producer, who I adore. I just really clicked with both of them. So they asked me to take over A-Camera Steadicam for season 3.
Oh, nice.
which was an amazing experience. Working daily with Fred Murphy blew my mind because that guy truly understands every aspect of filmmaking. And we had, speaking of production design too, Robert King had this idea of Robert Michel had this idea of it always raining. And we're on a stage.
Raining. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they had rain machines outside the windows of the stage, but that meant they had to seal all the windows.
Yeah.
So they didn't gimbal. And a set made of glass of a law firm.
Oh, lovely.
So it became triple reflection. All the interior glass still gimbal.
Yeah, but the outside.
So you would have to. You got very good. I only wish I was this good of a pool player, Dave. It's like they bang, 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 bang. And speaking of crew helping you, this is Renee's third season, and even though the windows used to gimbal to the outside too, he was very helpful at the reflections, and so was the set dress.
Reflection. Yeah. It's funny because whenever I've done things that have been law shows, my first thought is like, oh God, it's going to be glass all over the place, assuming it's a modern day, whatever, And it is that thing where you're like, there's a reflection there, but I'm looking through 5 different pieces of glass, so now I have to go to each one and walk through.
Yep. You get very good at it. But it was a tremendous, because that show, if you're not familiar, it's really an absurdist comedy, if you ask me. It's really a dark comedy.
I worked on The Good Wife a little bit, and I saw a little bit of that, but I never saw it. I'll have to check it out.
It being streaming could go places the network show never could.
Oh, I didn't know it was streaming.
Yeah, it was Paramount Plus. And starting in season 3, we also went to a 2:40 aspect ratio. We did spherical, but we cut it. And I actually put a whole, not lookbook, but sort of a lookbook together before we started the season and sent it to Fred and the Kings and saying, just so you know, this is what this will do to the conference room. This is what it will do to the courtroom. This is what it does to your close-ups.
You went and you took pictures.
This is before Shot Deck, but I wish I had Shot Deck. Sure. But but I essentially found, I went and found reference photos for courtrooms, conference rooms, law firms.
Oh, that's great. How cool.
In different aspect ratios, just to make sure they all understood what that was going to do. I embraced it. They're like, this is amazing. So we play more stuff in 2 shots or 3 shots. And Brooke loved that. Brooke Kennedy really was into that.
Brooke Kennedy. God, I remember Brooke from back in the Third Watch days.
Yes, exactly. She was our producing director, and she was became a dear ally of mine.
She's no nonsense.
No, I love her. Yes.
So I could see how she would love that. She's like, yes, this is concrete. We know what we're doing. That's fantastic.
And so then COVID struck. I shot a little units for that show because Fred actually directed an episode, although we had another DP. So I would shoot occasionally, but not a ton. And then
you would DP them.
Yes, correct. Yeah, a little bit. So over seasons 2 or 3, and then COVID struck, and then we had a little COVID hiatus.
Yeah.
And then when production started up again, Evil, which is the other show Fred was shooting for Robert Michel King, they kind of started at the same time.
Evil with Katja Habers?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I worked with her on Manhattan. Lovely. Absolutely lovely.
Yeah, she's great. I shot an episode and parts of other episodes of that show, bridging from The Good Fight to Elsbeth. And just Tim Guinness, rest in peace, wonderful other DP on the show, was going to shoot it by himself, but I had this terrible conflict where a DP I'd wanted to work with forever called me up and said, I have the studio picture. And I read the script and it was great. And I said, yeah, I kind of got to go do this, And one of the good or bad, I tend to be like, oh, I've done something. It's time to move on.
So I'm sorry, he wanted you as a camera steady cam.
On
you had this opportunity to be a DP.
So, well, no, I wasn't offered a DP role yet. I went back as I'm not being clear. I would have, rather than going back to The Good Fight.
Gotcha.
So, I called Tim Guinness and I called Brooke and I said, I'm going to go take this movie.
Yep.
So they got Peter Nolan, who was the A camera up from Good Wife, on A camera. They brought Sandy Hayes back as a B camera steady cam.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, great, I'm going to go do this movie for my buddy Pete. And then before the film starts, I get this call that Pete's elderly mother is very sick with COVID. This is before any vaccines or cures, so he's got to back out of the film.
Oh,
the film's in Atlanta. Yeah, I bet you can get where this is going.
Yeah.
UPM immediately is like, well, look at that line item.
Get that guy out of there. Yeah.
Let's get that guy out of there. I hired a European DP who had just done a film in Atlanta and had a crew. So suddenly the music stopped and I looked around and I had no chair.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
So now I'm sitting around in a New York apartment going, well, this sucks. What have I done? It's one of those where you sulk for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. But that's a very real thing that happens. I mean, every time you take a job, you're like, what did I just screw myself out of? What am I turning down?
So then another operator texts me and says, hey, Good Fight's looking for operators. What do you know about it? And I said, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I call Brooke and Brooke's like, oh, Peter's got COVID. And she's like, wait, are you telling me you're available?
Oh, jeez.
I'm going to swear because I'm going to quote her. Are you fucking telling me you're available? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? You're around. And I'm like, yeah.
Yep.
So they're like, okay. They're like, we hired this guy, Tom Wills. I love Tom. Oh, yeah. And so he's going to come in, but you have to test and wait 48 hours or whatever. It wasn't 2 weeks, but yeah.
The whole thing.
So they're like, you should come in tomorrow and test. And to show you how great these people are, they actually said, so here's the deal. We're going to pay you your full A camera rate with a Steadicam. We're going to pay Tom his full rate with a Steadicam.
Wow.
And if you want to leave your Steadicam at home, you can do that.
Tom's going to
let him do it.
Yeah,
so I called Tom and said, look, do you mind stepping down to B? He's like, are you kidding me? I'd love to for you. So he steps down to B. He does the Steadicam. I do the A camera.
Amazing.
And so it was like 10 days. And every day Brooke would walk by me. She'd wag her finger at me going, I have to figure out a way to keep you. So and then in the end they're like, hey, we're gonna do a little tandem next week, because tandems were pretty much dead at this point with COVID, but they're like, we're gonna do a little tandem. Why don't you DP it? And I said, sure, that'd be great. And then at the end of the tandem day they came to me and said, so we know we're gonna lose you because you're gonna get a movie or something, but it's a tricky time right now, and we're one DP show with Tim. What if we put you on salary 40 hours a week as a DP, and you go on scouts, you help them out, you do standby, you do They created a job for me.
Jeez, that's fantastic. Good
So
Lord.
I'm like, yes. Hell yes.
Yeah, right?
That's about as enthusiastic of a yes as one can have.
Oh, my gosh.
So fast forward like a day or two later, less than a week later, I'm sitting having lunch with a friend, and a late lunch with a friend. And we're having, because outdoor lunch, we're actually having a glass of wine. Well, you want another one? I'm like, well, I think I'm on call technically. So no, I'm going to not having another glass of wine. My phone rings. And they're like, Timmy just got hurt. Can you come in? He unfortunately hurt his foot on set and then actually dislocated the shoulder.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So I go into work. And then I shoot that day. I shoot the next day. I shoot the next day. I shoot the next day. And we did 10 episodes a season. And this was episode 4.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning of episode 4. And I ended up shooting episodes 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Wow.
And then tandems on 9 when he came. I shot 4 through 9. And then Tim managed to come back for the finale. But I shot a bunch of tandems. And then Brooke came to me and said, you're alternating next year with tandems. And that's how I stepped up to DPing. So... yeah, that's a pretty neat story.
That's amazing. So, look, the way it happened, I get that you never looked back, but was it hard hanging up the rig? Did you sell your rig?
I did, but not for a while.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to think. I would never want to take a show where I wasn't alternating now, but the thing about shooting 5 in a row is you just go. My key grip would walk up to me and like show me pictures and be like, what end do you want on these windows? I'm like, I don't know. You tell me. What's the direction? What direction are they facing?
Yeah.
Part of what was so great, I had, when I was the operator there, I had Brian Edmiston as my dolly grip, who's one of the greatest dolly grips I've ever worked with. And when I started shooting, he stepped up to key grip because Brendan Quinlan, the key grip, had went over to Evil. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like the teenagers got the keys to the house. Yep. So I had a blast.
Oh, that's great.
Absolute blast with it, that crew.
But that said, when you finally had to do it, was it hard to say, I'm no longer going to operate? Like, do you miss it?
Well, it's interesting. So the end of that first season I DP'd, and I knew I was coming back, and it's a short season. It's 6 months, 5.5, 6 months. So I knew I had 6 months off.
Yeah.
And I knew I was never going to be able to find a DP job because none of this had aired yet. So I ran out and got 2 more movies as an A camera study came out. I managed to get 2 back-to-back films, Fire Island, which I mentioned.
Yep.
And then one called Shank and Dunk, that's a Disney thing. And then I went right from that back to season 6 of the Good Fight. And then when I found out that was the final season, my wife was shooting a show called East New York. And she's like, I got us. If you go back to operating, it's going to become an asterisk on your resume. You need to hold out for another job. And it was a while. Ironically, I shot an episode of Evil covering Fred Murphy when he did the pilot to Elsbeth.
Okay.
And then the strike happened, and I thought I was never going to, I was like, that's it. Now what do I do? And then it led to Elsbeth. So
there you go.
But do I miss operating? I sometimes, like occasionally, Barnaby, my A steady up on Elsbeth, they'd be doing a shot, and I'd look at it and go, that looks fun. But no, I don't. I don't miss the daily grind of it. I love prep. The greatest thing about DPing is the prep and getting to work with a production designer. And I frequently speak of the operator, director, DP relationships triangle, and all you're doing is moving to a different side of that triangle.
Yeah, you're still involved. Yeah. Now, tell me about, as a DP, working with operators.
I've been very fortunate to have very good operators. Barnaby and Kate LaRose and some fantastic operators. I had a young op say, must be really intimidating to operate for you. And I said, I don't think it is. I'm never going to ask you to do something that physically can't be done.
Sure.
The scene where they want you to match an actor's speed and the actor is doing, you physically have to run 6 times further than an actor. That math doesn't math out. I'm never going to ask you to do that. Right?
Yeah.
I will move a light if I can. And if I can't, I will have your back.
But do you think that younger operators are looking at you going, God, he's probably judging every single frame. And, I can't believe I did that. Do you think it gets in their head?
It might, except for I'm not sure if people remember anything anymore. And I think we had a day playing Loader on our show, and he came up and he starts showing me the Steadicam shot he did on his phone. And I think he's showing me because, it's a Steadicam up for forever. And I forget what I said. I made some reference to Steadicam, and he looked at me and said, "Oh, you did Steadicam." And Elisa Colley, the career second, one of the best seconds in the world, who happened to be walking by. And she just starts laughing. And then she's like, you should really IMDb the people you're waiting for.
That's
and
great.
It was great. The rest of the day, every time she walked by him, she would just start laughing.
That's great. That's fantastic. That's great. Going back to being to operating, tell me about working with actors.
Excellent question. It's one reason I'm so probably the biggest reason I'm anti-headset as an operator is the only thing I want to hear during a shot is the actors. I want to be telling the same movie, the same story that the actor is. I mean, we've all been in situations where the actor looks at you first when touch call. And to the point where at times you're like, you want to be careful. You don't want to be overstepping your bounds, but you have a trust with them, especially in television where directors rotate.
Wait, go back and just explain what you mean by not overstepping your bounds, because I don't know that everybody gets that.
Some directors would not want an operator communicating in that fashion to an actor. I can't say I've run into that a lot. They know, especially in TV, that we're there every day.
Meaning giving them feedback like, hey, that was really great. Or
on performance.
Yeah.
It's obviously easier if they nailed it. I don't think I'm trying to think of a time if I've ever looked at him and shook my head like you should go again. I'm not sure I've ever done that. Yeah. Or I have. I've blocked it out of my mind.
Well, you definitely don't do the really. You're going with that.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. But there, have you had the situation where you have a director who is, how do I put this? Who is not a secure person, and so as a result, you have to be overly careful about not seeming like you're interacting much at all because of how it'll affect them, not necessarily because of how it'll affect the actors?
Yes, I've certainly been in that situation. That said, most actors are fairly aware, and I think they pick up on that too. So they adapt, they act, they change their communication style with you a little bit, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
But I will always have, an actor's back. Operators or DP, you just want to make them look good, and they get that trust, and you spend more time with them than you see your family, so.
Yeah.
But I'm very honest with answers. In season 1 of The Americans, first shot day 1 with Matthew Rhys, who's a fantastic human being.
A phenomenal person. He's been on the podcast, and he's just incredible. And every time I watch him, he's like so watchable as an actor.
That's right, because he mentions all you other guys as best operators ever worked with. Clearly, that's selective amnesia.
He's the best.
I did listen to that. It was a great episode. He would open. The scene started with him opening a door. And he would do it. He did it in rehearsal. He'd open the door so I'd have my frame. And I said, I was like, I got it. Because, you use the classic, the height you're at. You use the door hinge, the third knuckle or what, however.
Find something. Yeah, something.
Yeah, you find something. So I was like, thank you. But I would make a point, and I used to, I'm right for those listening. I'm showing Dave, I'm holding my hand to my chest. I would just do that from behind the camera so we would know what size.
Tell him what the frame size is.
Yeah, what the frame size is. And he would go, thank you, I shall act accordingly, in that very regal voice. But then at a certain point, he would start guessing the lens and the millimeter.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, oh, he's one of those actors. He actually wants to learn that stuff. So, fantastic guy.
Those to me are the best people to work with because they clearly realize, at least this is what I take out of it, that you're an important part of the what's going on too, and that the more that I know about them, the better it's going to be, and the more that they know about us, the better it's going to be. About our jobs, and that always amazes me when that happens because there's this part of me that wants them to completely forget about me, but then there's the part of me that realizes that if they understand the frame, they can work within that frame much better. I don't know, better is the right word, but successfully.
I mean, this is actually what I miss most about operating. It is because I'm back in a tent now. So clearly I get to know my actors, but it's not quite the same.
It's not the same, right?
No. Yeah. And one of the amazing things that happened with Elsbeth is Carrie Preston, our number 1. She actually directed 2 episodes of The Good Fight that I shot for her.
No way.
So we got to know each other as director DP before I knew her as an actress.
Mm-hmm.
And we became fast friends. And so that was just fantastic.
That's fantastic. That's great. That's absolutely great. Do you, when you go into work now as a DP, well, towards the end, when you were operating and now as a DP, are you nervous when you start a new job?
You mean like a new show or a new job category?
No, a new show. Sorry.
Oh, absolutely. I never sleep that first night. It never goes away. And I think I've heard others say that, and it's true. I can't stand day 1 of a job.
But what do you know? Does the nervousness change, or is it the same thing? Like, is it an internal thing, or is it just something that exists everywhere, and that's just what it is?
I think some of it is the excitement. At least like to con myself into thinking that some of it's just excitement, but some of it's a little bit.
This isn't fear. This is excitement.
yeah, it's not fear. It's excitement. But it's a bit of both. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm at a point where I know so many crews, you lose some of that fear. You're like, okay, I know I've got a great focus puller. I know I've got a great, key grip. Yeah, I'm surrounded by amazing people, so just don't fuck it up.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's still always that little, and I talk to directors who feel the same way. And do you, out of curiosity, do you feel nervous?
I absolutely do. There's no question about it. But I think for me, it's 2 specific things. One is, who's gonna be the problem if there is one? Like, because I mean, not to say that there always is one, but there's always the potential for like someone you don't get along with, or an actor who's going through a divorce and you've got to tiptoe around, or who knows what it is like. And it's actually not, I shouldn't say it that way, not who's going to be the problem, but what problems are going to exist. And am I going to recognize them in a way that I can help facilitate them and make them better? Does that make sense? I think that's sort of what the concern is.
It does. And I don't know. I mean, we are in a kinder, gentler film business, I think, now than we used to be, which is mostly a very good thing. But I think there used to be this little bit of attitude of like, okay, what department is going to get a target thrown on their back just so we can, keep everybody on their toes? And you don't want to be part of that department.
And that used to happen much more than it does now, thankfully.
Correct.
That is a thing of the past. But there are those things of like, look, there are times where you get on a show where you don't gel with someone, and there's always that thing of like, I hope everybody's cool, and I hope I'm cool with everybody. And mainly, it's just sort of, I just want to do good work, and be an asset and make it better. And I hope that I can pull that off. So I don't think it's concrete, but I think there's always an underlying. And I wonder if you find this as a DP or if you found this as an operator. I generally, driving home, will finally realize how I should have done a shot or what I could have done. Not that I did it bad, but what I missed. Do you know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
does that happen with you as a DP?
Well, actually, I'll rewind a little bit to that first season of The Good Fight when Tim was hurt, Tim Guinness. I felt an immense pressure on myself to make sure he was happy.
He was
incredibly supportive, mind you.
I'm sure he was. He's a wonderful guy, but that's a different thing, especially when you're filling in for someone, because you're like, I don't want to cause any waves, and I want to do this justice and all that stuff. So that I totally get. That's a different ball of wax, I think.
Yeah, he was super supportive. But in terms of shots, when you look at shots you've done, I can accept it for what it is.
Yeah.
But you still see the mistakes. I mean, I need to think of how would I do that differently. Like I did this OKGO video that's been talked about a lot. I don't want to overly drag us down that road.
I actually want to ask you about that. So glad you brought it up. But at least a little bit. Yeah.
And it was so technically specific, and the roll cage on top was not a functioning AR anymore. It did not keep auto level. It was strictly hooked up to a Microforce to do the zoom.
So they could do the roll.
Yeah. But it only meant I was doing a normal Steadicam, but the camera's farther from your gimbal because it's in this rotating cage. So, and I see a couple of tiny imperfections. Of course I do, but it's still amazing that we pulled it off. So
can you just explain what that? I'll post it on the website, but just explain what that was and what's it like when you get called for an OKGO video? Because even if you don't know what it is, it's going to be something crazy.
Okay. Just on my old Steadicam website that's still up, floatingcamera.com. There's under articles or press or something. There's a whole write-up I did about that. I'll just throw that out there for listeners.
Oh, great. And I'll make sure to put that on the website. Yes.
The Luke Geisbiller is a DP, a wonderful guy. He called me. I'll never forget. I was at Sundance, and he calls me, and I answered, and he's like, I'm doing this. I'm in China. I'm doing this OKGO video. And the more times we talked, the more I'm like, well, that stuff sounds like a really great motion control shot. And
at this point, they're that they're the guys who do the crazy music videos. I mean,
yes. No. I mean, I was incredibly excited to do it, but as he describes it to me, which to recap for those who don't know, the video involves a lot of optical illusions, and the camera, the lens has to land on an exact mark.
And when we say exact, like half an inch off and it's not working.
Yeah, exactly. The last mark, I think, was a half an inch margin of error. Some of the others were way more forgiving, but some were not.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it couldn't be motion control because it's up and down ramps.
Okay.
And there's a what we call the spinning wheelhouse, where the characters go into a hallway and then they walk upside down on the walls and over the ceiling. And the way we achieve that is the room spins.
Yeah, it's the old Fred Astaire dancing thing. Yeah.
So I back onto a crane, because obviously I can't walk the walls, like they're athletic. And then we spin the camera inside of this AR cage to match the speed of the room. And on paper, it's super simple.
Yeah, but there's a lot that can go wrong with that. Yeah.
Just like the AR, which the camera or a Wave or any of these devices we're now using, the camera needs to be balanced within that arc.
Yep.
This room wasn't evenly balanced. It was very bottom heavy. So the speed was not consistent on the rotation.
So it would fight to get up to the top, and then it would come down. Oh, jeez.
So it was, and we fought the engineers to try to get them to put weights up top. It's just like balancing a camera, put weights up top, even it up. But the motor wasn't strong enough. The engineers wanted nothing to do with it.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
So it was so hard. My focus puller actually ended up doing the Microforce, and we had his second pulling focus because the focus.
So he was basically just visually adjusting as it went to keep it,
and we had
point or whatever.
A little bit of margin of error. That's about the only thing they could do in post, is because we were shooting an extra K.
Okay.
So you could take a little of that out.
Yeah.
But that was really the hardest part of the video to do.
And I remember seeing pictures of when you went from one thing to another. They were almost like these wooden V's that you would come back into to make sure you were in the right space.
That was for the final mark. We experimented with a bunch of different things, plexiglass rods, and ultimately I just V's on the floor, tape marks on the floor,
and then visually realizing where it lines up and everything.
Yes, we did do that doc for the last one for two reasons. One, that was the one with a half-inch margin of error, and two, it allowed me to walk into the shot at the end.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
But it was one of those. I woke up in the middle of the night because the height concerned me. I mean, if you're done Steadicam, we don't really think that much about height. You know how tall you are.
Yeah.
You know your hand relationship. The hand to the vest, the spar, but that's not that accurate, really.
No.
So I thought, why don't I just put a Cinetape on the monitor aimed at the floor with a readout above my monitor, so I know the exact height.
So you would always just keep it exact. So you're talking about keeping it on the same plane.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I came up with that idea. I was like, great. So, I'm on my way to China. They're like, okay, we couldn't get a Cinetape. We got an Airy tape. I said, no problem. I get there, and there's no power cables for the Airy tape. Because they'd rented it from a rental house that only had reds.
Oh,
I'm sorry, only had Airy cameras, and we were using a red. So I'm like, that's no problem. We'll just cut the end off the cable, and you solder this on.
This is the way we used to do it.
This is the way we do, right? and then the next morning when I showed up, it was gone. The crew, because instead of insurance, apparently some of the assistants work for the rental companies there. And they didn't like that idea, so the gear just disappeared.
Whoa.
So I was like, oh, that's it. Nope, can't get it back. Sorry. So I just had to use my hand, the old-fashioned way on the vest. But I was like, okay. That was an interesting fail. So talk about cultural differences. It's cool.
And just because I have to ask, what are those guys like? Are they just total like mad geniuses or?
Oh, the OKGO. Oh, absolutely.
Because they come up with these things, right? I mean,
they do.
They're like fully involved in this. Is it across the board, or is it one or two of them?
Damien, the lead, is he co-directed it with one of their designers, Mary Faggot. Okay. But Damien's a genius. I mean, that guy literally, and his enthusiasm and patience is extraordinary.
Wow. Well, I mean, look, they did that one video they were up for 2 days or whatever it was and doing stop motion. I mean, that has to be like the level of commitment is ridiculous. He
is such a geek. How we found Luke Geisbuehler, the DP, is Luke got a little bit of internet fame because he did it's like a weather balloon that went up to high orbit, but not a weather balloon, like a space balloon as a project and put it with his son and put it on the internet.
Oh, wow.
And then Damien saw that and was just contacted him and said, we should make a video together. You're my kind of nerd.
That's so great.
Yeah. So he's very, very cool guy. Very special.
That's very good. And why did they do it in China?
It was technically a Chinese furniture commercial. It's like Red Star Maclean is sort of the IKEA of China.
I never got that. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So that's why.
And like one of their other videos is a Ford. For Ford, they have these deals where it's genius. They get the money, and then I never met the client. They were up in another floor behind windows, and they weren't allowed on set. They got to give a few notes, but I've never seen a commercial like that before.
The Ford one must be one where they're driving and they're yeah, okay. I never thought about that. So they're basically product placing. That's wild. Gee, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, no, they get people to pay for these things, and then then that causes people to go to concerts and.
So great.
He explained to me, you don't make money selling CDs and albums anymore. So you got to do it other ways. And that's sort of
really smart. That's really cool. What a cool thing to be a part of. I mean, I would imagine when you get the call for an OKGO video, you're just like, okay, this is going to be different.
Yes.
No matter what it is.
But they're great guys, all of them. He would actually make an excellent guest on your podcast. Should you?
I'd be totally interested if you're connected with them.
I haven't spoken to him in years, but we can look. We'll talk.
All right. Good. Well, Alec, this has been really great. It's been fantastic catching up with you, and I mean, you have so much to offer here. It's really fantastic. So I'm going to leave you with the thing that I leave everybody with, and ask you to take us out. Advice for someone getting in the business today on how to succeed, and/or something you have learned along the way that you wish you knew a lot sooner.
So my stock answer to that is always know the story and know the room. Not necessarily in that order. And by the story, that's obvious. The story that you're all trying to tell, the film, the TV show. The room, who's in it, who's the director, who are the actors, the politics of it all, because that's incredibly instrumental, no matter what position you want to do on set. Very, very important. But what else I will say is, don't forget about your family, whether that's your dog or your plants or a spouse or children. We work some very long hours. I've seen a lot of families or couples break up over the years doing this job. And just remember that the excitement that you have for this industry, it's always good to stay excited, but eventually that changes. People ask me, do I still love what I do? And I say, yes, I do love what I do, but it's no longer an unconditional love affair. So find some hobbies, find some other things to do, and don't forget to enjoy your life.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.